It's pretty crazy. Nearly 70% of sales teams just don't hit their quotas.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what's going on.
Yeah, what's holding them back?
Well, a lot of times it comes down to they're just focused on the wrong things.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, you can think about it like training for a marathon, but you're only focused on how many steps you take, not how far you actually run.
Okay, so you're working really hard, but you're not actually moving towards your goal.
Exactly.
And that's something that the sales experts talk about in their article, Sales Metrics to Measure.
Yeah.
They call these things vanity metrics. So numbers that might look good at first glance, but they don't actually mean anything for sales success.
Yeah, and the thing about those is they can actually make you feel like you're accomplishing something when you're really not.
Yeah. You might think, oh, we're making all these calls, we're sending all these emails.
Right, you feel busy.
But are they actually leading to anything?
Yeah, exactly.
And they give some really good examples of these misleading metrics, like just counting the number of calls made.
Right.
You could have somebody on the phone all day long.
Yeah.
But if those conversations aren't actually going anywhere or leading to qualified leads,
Right.
what's the point?
Just spinning your wheels.
Yeah. And then another one is email open rates.
Uh-huh.
So you might get a really high open rate.
Yeah, looks good.
But if nobody's actually clicking through or doing anything with that email,
Right, responding or taking action.
it doesn't really tell you anything.
Yeah.
And then the sales experts also talk about the number of leads generated.
Right.
That can be another kind of misleading metric.
Yeah, because it's not just about how many leads you have, it's are they good leads?
It's about quality over quantity.
Exactly, because you could have a huge list of leads and very few of them actually pan out.
And you spend all this time and energy on people who aren't actually going to buy anything.
Right.
So how do we know what to actually look at?
Yeah.
What are the right things to be measuring to know that our sales efforts are actually successful?
Well, the sales experts really encourage a shift in focus to look at metrics that actually show you how effective your sales process is
Okay.
and also the value of your customer relationships.
Okay, so looking more long-term than just like the immediate sale.
Right.
Yeah, they talk about a few key metrics, and I thought it was interesting. The first one they dove into was conversion rates.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, so essentially, conversion rates are measuring how well you're moving people through your sales funnel.
Okay. From when they first hear about you,
Right.
all the way to when they actually become a customer.
Exactly.
And so it's not just about how many leads you have coming in, but how many of them are actually making it to that final stage.
Right. So if you're generating tons of leads, but very few of them are turning into actual customers, that means something. The thing about conversion rates is you can break them down by stage in the funnel so you can see where things might be breaking down.
Oh, so you can actually pinpoint. Okay, so give me an example.
Yeah, so let's say your marketing campaigns are doing a great job bringing in tons of leads, but then very few of them are actually turning into qualified opportunities.
Okay.
So that might mean that there's a problem with how you're qualifying those leads. Maybe you're attracting the wrong kind of people, or your sales team isn't filtering out those who aren't a good fit early enough.
So maybe the marketing message needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Possibly, yeah.
Or maybe the sales team is spending time on leads that they shouldn't be.
Exactly.
And then on the other hand, what if you have like a good amount of opportunities, but then they're not closing into actual deals?
Right. Well, then that might point to something else entirely.
Okay.
It could be that your sales pitch just isn't resonating with people, or your pricing isn't competitive.
Okay.
Or maybe your closing techniques could use a little work.
So you could look at each stage and see where the problem is. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so by tracking these conversion rates all the way through, you can really figure out where those bottlenecks are and then make changes to improve your overall performance.
Yeah, it's about making sure you're not just busy, but you're actually getting results.
Okay, so conversion rates, all about moving people through the sales funnel.
Uh-huh.
And then the other one that the sales experts talk about is customer lifetime value.
Yeah.
Now that one seems maybe a little bit more complicated.
It is. It's more nuanced, but I think it's even more important than conversion rates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's really about the long-term health of your business
Okay,
and understanding that not every customer is the same.
that makes sense. Some customers are going to spend way more than others.
Right, and some are going to be one-time buyers, and some will stick with you for years.
And some will tell all their friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so understanding that customer lifetime value is really crucial because it helps you make decisions about who to target, how much you can spend to acquire new customers, and even how to structure your pricing.
Okay, so it's really looking at that big picture strategy.
Right.
And it's not just about closing the next deal, it's about building those relationships that are going to last.
Exactly.
So if you can figure out who those really valuable customers are,
Right.
you can put more of your effort into attracting those kinds of people
Exactly. And you can also work on keeping those high-value customers happy so they stay with you longer.
and tell all their friends to become customers too.
Exactly.
So how do we figure this out? Like, how do you actually measure customer lifetime value?
Well, the basic idea is to try and estimate the total revenue that a customer will generate over their entire relationship with your company.
Okay, so we're thinking long term
Right.
and not just about that first sale.
Uh-huh. And you also have to factor in the cost of acquiring and serving that customer so you can see how profitable they truly are.
Okay.
So you got to consider things like marketing expenses, sales commissions, customer support, the cost of actually producing your product or service.
So it's a bigger picture.
Right. It's a
Right.
more holistic
Yeah.
view.
Okay, so it's not just about closing the next deal. It's about finding those customers who are going to be with you for a long time.
Yeah.
And really contribute to the success of your business.
Exactly.
So we've talked about conversion rates, getting people through the funnel,
Right.
and customer lifetime value, really understanding the value of each customer.
Uh-huh.
The sales experts talk about a few other really important metrics too.
Yeah, like sales cycle length, win rate, and churn rate.
All these things are really important for understanding how well your sales operation is actually working.
Right. And looking at them together gives you a much better picture than just focusing on those vanity metrics we talked about earlier.
Oh.
It's about moving beyond just being busy and really focusing on those outcomes that matter
Yeah?
and actually drive sales success.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a lot to think about here.
Yeah.
We've covered some really interesting ground with the sales experts,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like we're just scratching the surface. We'll come back and we'll explore those other metrics in more detail and talk about how they can help sales leaders, hiring managers, executives really make better decisions and drive those results.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's jump into some of those other key metrics the sales experts talk about, starting with sales cycle length.
Okay.
Now, for our sales leaders out there, this is all about speed and efficiency, right?
Yeah. Time is money.
Exactly. The shorter your sales cycle, the faster you're generating revenue and keeping that pipeline flowing.
Makes sense. But what if you're in an industry where sales cycles are just naturally longer?
Right.
Like, say you're selling these big, complex enterprise software solutions.
Sure.
It's not like you can just rush a multi-million-dollar deal.
Of course not, but that's where benchmarking comes in.
Yeah.
Even if your industry has longer sales cycles, you still want to be as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
So track that average sales cycle length and look for any bottlenecks that might be slowing things down.
Okay, so even if you can't, like, dramatically shorten the whole thing, you can still find ways to make it a little bit smoother.
Exactly. Even shaving off a few days here and there can make a big difference.
Yeah, in terms of, like, cash flow and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then we've got win rate.
Mm-hmm.
That one seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The more deals you win, the better, right?
Well, not necessarily.
Mm.
It's important to look at the context of those wins.
What do you mean?
Well, are you winning deals because you're genuinely the best fit for the customer?
Okay.
Or are you just undercutting everybody else on price
Ah, I see.
and sacrificing profitability?
Right, you might close a bunch of deals, but if you're not actually making any money,
Exactly.
it's not really a win.
And are those customers going to be happy down the line, or are they going to churn out quickly?
So it's about quality of wins, not just quantity.
Exactly. And that's why looking at win rate, along with those other metrics like customer lifetime value and sales cycle length,
Yeah, you got to look at the whole picture.
it all ties together.
Okay, and then the last one, they talked about churn rate.
Yeah, that one keeps a lot of sales leaders up at night.
I bet, because if you're constantly losing customers,
Right. It's a drain on your resources.
and it's got to be demoralizing for the team too.
Absolutely. Nobody likes to see their hard work go to waste.
And it's like you're always trying to fill up this leaky bucket.
Exactly. You're pouring in new customers, but they're just slipping away.
And the sales experts say it's way more cost effective to just keep the customers you already have.
Absolutely. Happy customers are your best advocates.
Makes sense. But some churn is just inevitable, right?
Sure, you can't please everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But if your churn rate is really high, that's a sign that something needs attention.
Okay, so like what could be causing that?
Well, it could be an issue with your product itself.
Okay.
Maybe your customer support isn't up to par.
Right.
Or maybe people just aren't seeing the value they expected.
So how do you actually measure churn rate?
Well, the basic formula is you take the number of customers you lost in a given period. and divide that by the total number of customers you had at the beginning of that period.
And what's considered a good churn rate?
Well, really depends on your industry and your business model.
Okay.
But generally speaking, the lower the better.
Yeah, makes sense.
And more importantly, you want to understand why people are leaving.
So you can fix it.
Exactly.
So talk to those customers who are churning out.
Right. Exit surveys, feedback forms, even just having a conversation.
Just try to get some insight into why they're leaving.
Exactly, because that feedback can be invaluable.
Okay, so we've talked about conversion rates, moving those prospects through the funnel,
Right.
customer lifetime value, understanding that long-term value.
Uh-huh.
And then we've got sales cycle length, win rate, and churn rate, all giving us a much better picture of our sales performance than just looking at those vanity metrics.
Exactly. They help you move beyond just measuring activity and start focusing on the outcomes that really matter for sustainable success.
It's like a whole different way of thinking about sales.
It is.
Okay, so we know what these metrics are now.
Mm.
How do we actually implement these changes?
Right. How do we make this shift happen?
Yeah.
Well, the sales experts have some really practical advice on that.
Okay, I'm ready.
It comes down to defining your goals, auditing your current metrics, investing in the right tools, and most importantly, training your team.
All right, so we're ready to make this shift happen, to start focusing on the metrics that really matter.
Yeah, and the sales experts lay out a really clear path for doing that.
Okay.
And it all starts with defining your goals.
Okay, so even before we start looking at numbers,
Right. You got to know where you're going.
what are we actually trying to achieve here?
Ask yourself, what's the ultimate goal for your sales organization?
Is it more revenue, bigger market share, happier customers?
Right. Or maybe something else entirely.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, but I feel like a lot of teams get caught up in the day-to-day,
Yeah, you get lost in the weeds.
and you lose sight of that big picture.
Exactly. So take that time to really define those goals and make sure everybody on your team is on the same page.
Okay, goals first, and then the sales experts say you got to take a look at the metrics you're currently tracking.
Right? They call it a metric audit.
A little scary sounding.
Yeah, but it's really about being honest with yourself.
Okay, are we measuring the right things?
Right. Are those metrics actually giving you the insights you need to reach your goals?
Or are we just looking at vanity metrics because they're easy?
Exactly. It might be tough to admit you've been focused on the wrong things,
Yeah.
but it's the first step to getting back on track.
Okay, so once you've done that audit, then what?
Well, then the sales experts talk about investing in the right tools.
Like a good CRM.
Yeah, a CRM is essential for managing your sales pipeline, tracking customer interactions, and keeping an eye on those key metrics.
Okay, but just having the CRM isn't enough, right?
No, you got to make sure it's the right CRM for your needs.
And that everyone knows how to use it.
Yeah. Exactly, because even the best CRM in the world won't do you any good if your team isn't putting in the right data.
Or if they don't know how to actually use that data to make better decisions.
Exactly, and that brings us to what I think is the most important part,
Okay.
training your team.
Okay, so this is more than just like changing some dashboards or adding some new reports.
Right. It's about creating a culture of data-driven decision-making
Where everyone understands the value of using data.
and feels empowered to use it.
Okay, so make sure everyone understands why you're making these changes.
Right. What these new metrics mean and how they can actually use them to be better at their jobs.
To close more deals, build stronger relationships.
Exactly. It's about giving them the tools and the knowledge to succeed.
So it's a journey, not just a destination.
Right. Be prepared to adjust and refine your approach as you go.
Because what works for one team might not work for another.
Exactly.
Okay, so the sales experts have given us a lot to think about here.
Yeah, they really have.
So what's your final takeaway for our listeners?
If you want to achieve real, lasting sales success,
Yeah.
you got to shift your focus away from those vanity metrics and start looking at the metrics that actually matter.
Okay, so really take a look at what you're tracking.
Right. Ask yourself, are these metrics helping us reach our goals?
Are they giving us the information we need?
Exactly.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely.
So start with one or two key metrics.
Right.
Get the tools and the training you need.
And then use those insights to guide your actions and make improvements along the way.
Okay, so set your sights on the right finish line.
That's the key.
Track the metrics that matter and watch your sales success soar.
That's what it's all about.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those sales numbers climbing.